today I'm going to demonstrate the MiniOne system, the new MiniOne system. And we are going to go ahead and unpack the student station box. And it contains a photo hood, the gel buffer tank, the carriage, the casting stand tray, and the power supply cord, a funnel, 2 gel platforms, a black and a gray, your P20 pipette, and a laminated sheet with practice micropipetting.
You will also need a bottle of the appropriate 1x running buffer. Be sure that you use the same buffer to make the agarose gel and to run the gel. Please watch our other video to learn to dilute concentrated stock buffers. Let's set up the electrophoresis unit. Note the gold rivets inside the carriage is where the electrodes will need to make contact. Do not allow liquid to get into the black carriage. Be careful to plug in the power cord straight into the hole at the back of the carriage. Do not hold it at an angle. Make sure that your electrophoresis unit is in the desired location, as the unit should not be moved or bumped after you start loading the samples. This is the gel buffer tank. The negative and positive signs are imprinted on the bottom. On the buffer tank, one side is smooth, and the other side has external bumps, which are the electrodes. There's a gel tray platform that can hold a black plate for DNA samples, or a gray plate for color dye samples. Notice that the plate has a little knob underneath, which only fits one way into the buffer tank. Match the ridges of the gel tray with the buffer tank. The gel tray will only fit into the buffer tank in one orientation. Place the gel tray containing an agarose gel on top of the plate. Make sure it is flat against the gel platform. Check that the wells are closest to the negative side of the buffer tank. Carefully place the buffer tank straight down inside the carriage. Check that the top edge of the buffer tank is level and that the electrodes are making contact with the gold rivets in the carriage. Measure and pour in 135 milliliters of 1x running buffer into one side of the buffer tank. Watch to see that air bubbles will move under the gel tray to the other side. You can move your funnel to the other side of the buffer tank. Be sure that the buffer completely covers the gel, but does not exceed the buffer fill line. For DNA samples, use the low light and black plate to load your samples into the wells. For color dye samples, use the gray plate. Please watch our other video for tips about loading gels. Place the hood onto the carriage. Push on the power button. A steady green LED light will show that the power is on. If you have DNA samples, it is important that you do not leave the light on while the gel is running, or the light-sensitive DNA stain will quickly fade. If you move the hood off the carriage, the power will automatically shut off. After replacing the hood, be sure to check that the green light is on. If not, push the power button again. Within 2 minutes, you should see bubbles forming on the negative electrode, which indicates that there is an electric current flowing throughout the buffer and gel. If separating DNA samples, watch that the loading die is moving towards the positive electrode. Usually, we will check the gel every 5 minutes. The new hood design has vents to prevent condensation. Place your phone camera flat on top of the photo hood. Do not use a zoom feature, as the hood is already at the best focal length for a smart device. If you have DNA samples, use the highlight setting and check that the fluorescent ruler is visible in your photo. Turn off the blue light as soon as your photos are taken. Usually we run samples for about 15 to 20 minutes. Turn off the power when the dye front has moved towards the positive electrode, but before the dye runs off the gel. If you have a separate blue light or UV transilluminator, you can also transfer the gel to take the photo under the transilluminator. If you have color dye samples, transfer the agarose gel onto a white laminated sheet to photograph. Usually, we dry off excess buffer around the gel and use an expo marker to print the lab team name and sample names above the wells. If you have used gel green stain, it is safe to discard the agarose gel into a regular school trash can. We hope that this video has helped you learn how to use the new MiniOne electrophoresis system.